All right, check out that beautiful image that you see. I think it's so calming and peaceful. So I'm going to drop a link in the chat really quick for a Jamboard because we invite you to consider what you are grateful for during our new reality. So if you would please join that Jamboard, again, the link is in the chat and you can respond by adding your thoughts. And I'll pause and mute my mic and just be quiet for a moment. We are also going to, I believe most of you have it, but we're going to drop the presentation link one more time to make sure everybody has that. All right, so I'm seeing patience and flexibility, health, grateful for time with family. Yes, being closer to our family, that's definitely been true for most of us, I think. Yes, family, friends, and good health. Yeah, I think some of the things we've taken for granted before, right? We're definitely cherishing those things a little bit more and looking at them in a different light. Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing. Make sure you take a moment to check those out later on if you weren't able to. All right, so on the next slide, we are going to look at our session goals. They are listed on the screen for you, and I'll give you just a quiet moment to read those. So please let us know if you have any questions or comments throughout the session by just commenting in the chat. We will be monitoring that throughout as everyone is presenting. So please, if you have any thoughts or questions that you would like to just share, we can definitely pause and address those and have conversations either with our mics unmuted or in the chat. So make sure you drop those in. All right. So these that you're seeing on the screen now are the North Carolina Digital Learning Standards for students. You can learn more about them by clicking on the circle that is in the center. That's actually a hyperlink that will take you out. And this is on slide 5 for those of you in the slide deck following along. And today in our session, we're going to focus on supporting students with that creative communicator standards. The others that are circled are going to be embedded in the things that we discuss and the resources that we share and what we talk about together and some of the activities that you do. And really, at the end of the day, almost all of those standards are being hit on or touched upon in some way or another. It's just the ones that we have circled are the ones that we're focusing on today. So if you have questions about those, please, reach out on the side to your digital learning coordinator and we can definitely support you with those and making sure you're able to implement those just seamlessly with the other content that you're already teaching. All right.
So we're going to jump right in. Let's take a look at this picture. What do you think it is? You can either unmute your mic or type in the chat. If you're watching this later, pause the video and make a guess. A fox, a deer, a deer. So I'm wondering, do you think that maybe the region that we live in, where you grew up, maybe your life experiences affects what you're guessing? Because we're all seeing the same half the story picture. I'm going to ask Tatiana to kindly move that box away. This is actually a donkey. Christy, I like that. This is actually a kangaroo. Nice. Well done. Somebody did guess it correctly. I'm wondering if our life experiences, or if we were doing this particular lunch and learn in another part of the world, if the guesses would be different. So our perspective and our environment and how we grew up, our experiences definitely have something to do with what we might think or how we approach something. So the key to effective collaboration and communication, we know, is building relationships, and that includes understanding perspectives, building trust, this open and honest line of communication, take a look at the picture. What do you see first? You can, again, put it in the chat or unmute and let me know. What do you see? So, did you focus on the eye first? Because if you did, you probably saw the face of a man staring at you. But if you focus on the nose first, you're looking at a profile. See if you can see both now that I've told you. Focus on the eye and look at that. And then focus on the nose and see if you can see that profile. How we approach a conversation or a task or any collaborative activity has a lot to do with the things that we focus on first. This is one of my favorites. Take a look at this picture. What do you see? And I'm going to ask people to unmute their mic or just drop it in the chat. What do you see?
A tropical bird resting is what it looks like.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Christy. Yeah, I definitely see a parrot. So what if I told you to start at the bottom right corner and then move your eyes kind of diagonally up to the left? Does this change your perspective at all? I'm going to take it one step further and I'm going to say, take a look at the toe or the foot in the bottom right corner. Can you now see, as you move your eyes diagonally up to the right, that this is actually a person in body paint sitting on a stand? So if we think about this in a broader sense, when we approach facilitating space that allows learners to bring their own perspectives to the table, are we inadvertently guiding them to approach tasks from our own perspective? So if I just ask you to look at something, you're bringing your own perspective with you. If you are directed first to look at something in this picture, you may see something different. So something to consider when we think about how our perspective influences the communication that's happening in our spaces, in our learning spaces. It's really interesting sometimes to think that how we want our students to see something, how we begin or might guide a conversation could have a lot to do with what they see and recognize. Thanks. So we talked a little bit, I mentioned it just a second ago, about building trust. So how our students enter our course, our class, our learning spaces, how they come to us is immediately this great, we are excited. We often ask them to share information, volunteer answers, collaborate on assignments. But we have to remember that building that trust is a process. So our kids come to us flying solo. Take a look at picture one. Even when we put them in the same group or class, particularly if we think about our students who may be learning virtually, whether it's in the class or virtual, they really come to us individually. It's our thought, it's our job, it's our heart. We want to guide them on how to move towards each other. How do we facilitate that so that they can find allies and help support each other? Like they're starting to get there in picture two. Eventually, we want them to get to picture three where they can actually find a few people that they can really count on and support them. And then as teachers, we hope that getting to picture four, that there's this open communication and space that will allow our kids to collaborate and work together. So again, working together is number two. They're kind of near each other. They could be working together. What we're trying to foster in creative communicators is a sense of students being able to collaborate and work together in a trusted learning space. Part of that And the last piece that I want to think about if we're talking about perspective is understanding how culture affects how we communicate with each other. So different cultures, ages, gender differences, preferences, and experiences all influence how we see the world. What seems completely clear to the person expressing their thoughts may not be the message that's received by listeners. I want you to think for just a second, maybe how your own culture or background affects how you communicate with others. And I'll just share with you, my culture, we're loud, we talk a lot, we jump in, we interrupt. It's my way of showing that I'm interested or passionate about something. And it's really been a learning experience for me sometimes to be able to kind of, hold that back. I joke with my colleagues that I have to mute my mic sometimes because I don't want to be an interrupter or a bad listener. And it's something that I work on. How does your culture affect maybe how you communicate and what you expect from a conversation? And with that, I'm going to pass it back.
Thank you so much for that, Jen. That was awesome. So, in speaking of communication, we want to think about some key elements that helps us understand our preferred method of communication. So, we're going to do a quick dot storming activity. And our ask is, how do you prefer to communicate in general? Not just with your students, not just with colleagues, but overall, what is your preferred method of communication? So, if you click on the image in the slide deck, it will take you to a Jamboard. Once you're in the Jamboard, you can select the dot and place the dot in your top preferred method of communication. Is it writing a letter, face to face, phone? Do you prefer a virtual meetup or FaceTime, or do you prefer text message? So, what is your top preferred method of communication? All right, it seems like face to face is very popular as well as phone conversations. Nice. Okay, so it looks like the top three are text message, face to face, and phone conversations are the preferred method in which we like to communicate. So when we reflect on our personal preferences, we should also consider our students. Everyone communicates in different ways. So let's take that into consideration when we're planning our lessons as well as activities. Thank you guys so much for your participation. All right. So over time, we communicate and access information. The way that has happened is changed in a major way, of course, with the help of technology. So we're going to take a look at how access to information started versus how it's going today. So first we have mail. We have your traditional letter versus email. So it seems like just yesterday we were writing letters to friends and family across the world. Some of us, we actually passed notes in class. I'm guilty. Sending letters have been made simple and quick by using email. Not only is it a quicker way to receive messages, but we're also able to compose that letter quicker, and we have spell check, which is nice as well. In addition, emails can be easier to keep up with, and we can also easily refer back to emails as well, rather than digging through lots and lots of papers. Next up, we have the old faithful telephone. That has definitely evolved. We've gone from having an operator connect with you to call waiting to three-way calling to caller ID to handheld devices to text conversation, ringtone selections to camera and video, and to now where we are, computers. Who knows what's going to be next as it relates to a telephone? But no matter what, one can argue that it's gotten better with time. So next up, we have pictures. Now, there is a time in history when you can capture images only through paintings. Now we have high quality devices that are readily available to us at the tip of our fingers. And that can easily be communicated and sent really quickly through phone, through email, just through our computers. We can definitely send pictures and images quickly to one another. So that's a great way to communicate. And lastly, we have schools. Who would have thought we would be where we are at this moment? Some of us have grown accustomed to the traditional classroom setting, also known as face-to-face. But over the past year, we've experienced remote learning and for some, blended learning. This is definitely a paradigm shift for most of us. So we're going to now pause and reflect and think. So in what ways have communication changed the way we connect with our students? We've looked at communication and changes over time with communication as it relates to technology. Now, how has that affected the way that, or changed the way that we communicate with our students? Feel free to drop a message in a chat, or you can unmute your mic and share with us. What are your thoughts? How has that changed with the way in which you connect with your students? We know that some teachers like to connect with their students through, and their parents as well, through using talking points. Sending a quick text message has been very convenient. We know that's something that has definitely changed over time. Okay, we're seeing screencasting, being able to do step-by-step directions. Awesome. Talking points was mentioned. Yes, Jennifer, I agree. We are more connected than ever. Oh, I also like the fact that you mentioned you don't have to wait to be in class to be able to ask a question. Great point. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for participating. And again, let's just check the way that we're communicating with our students and giving them a variety of ways to communicate. There's not just one way to solve the problem. We definitely want to be able to give them voice and choice in the way in which we communicate.
Thanks, Tatiana. So here we wanted to kind of discuss a little bit more about ways you can jump into some of the inclusion activities. So really, when we're working on building those connections with our students, we want to be sure that we are building community, and that's virtually, in person, concurrently. So when you have a chance, you can take a moment and click. There are resources on slide 22, but we really wanted to kind of open up the opportunity to share a little bit about inclusion activities and really making sure you're starting from a place where you are able to build trust, because without trust, the communication really isn't there, and we can't necessarily take the next step to build creative communication and strategies. So when thinking through this process and thinking through creative communicators, we really thought about, what are some core pieces that we wanted to start from. So open-ended questions is a really great way to begin to support students' creative responses. Learner agency is another really great way that we can connect students and really have them allow for more creative responses and more creative ways of communicating their learning. In addition, authentic tasks, which we'll review in a moment, have a really great connection to real world things that are happening and allows for a stronger communication within students to the real world. So open-ended questions, great way to get started with building students' open communication. We see some examples. If Tatiana will click on the examples, some of the ways that we can build some of that communication is allowing for students to take the question where they feel most led. When you build some of those resources in, so thinking about how you can, instead of asking a question that has an exact answer or a fill in the blank response, thinking about how assessments can allow to provide us more understanding of where students' thought processes are versus just responding and answering, an ABCD question. So some of these are really great and sort of quick ways that you can start to embed some of that creative communication. We also provided the open-ended question stems. So that's another really quick way to start to add some of those questions into your everyday conversations, into your assessments, and really into your, as you're building, working towards this community building in your in-person and virtual and concurrent classrooms, really starting to think through how to add those open-ended questions throughout your lessons. So learner agency is another great way to allow for students to really drive their learning and express how they understand the information that they're working on. So here we're actually going to give you a little bit of time to explore. So each of those folders are linked to a different portion of learner agency. So you've got choice boards, which allows for students to choose how they're responding to a question. Hyperdocs, which is a hyperlinked format where students can also provide research multiple resources and then respond. And then Pathways is a really great way to kind of guide students' learning as well. So it allows them to kind of make their own, choose their own adventure, if you will, as they're going through the pathway. So we'll let you guys have about 3 minutes to explore these resources about learner agency, and then we will come back together. We have about 10 seconds. And again, all of these resources will be available to you. They are all linked in folders that you can access at a later time as well. All right, thank you for exploring some of those resources. So another great way that we can provide authentic learning and really open that communication is authentic tasks. The two kind of focus areas that we thought would be most significant and is really rooted in what Wake County is doing already is inquiry design models and project-based learning. So inquiry design models has a really great access point through our social studies resources, and it's really a way to allow for rooting your learning in one question and inquiry based, and allowing for students to explore how they receive the information and then how they get to their final taking action and taking initiative through this informed process. Project-based learning is something that is really been a buzzword over the past quite a few years in the schools, but in addition also, really trying to resonate real world problems and real world scenarios in our learning allows for students to creatively solve problems and express their understanding of a topic. So all of these resources for inquiry design models, project-based learning will all be linked a little later on slides 23.
All right, so we have an opportunity for you to reflect a little bit. We'll have about 5 minutes. So on the screen, you can see, there's a choice board, right? And we mentioned that choice boards offer a great way to really bring out that creative communicator in your students. And this is just a sample of a choice board, right? But this one's just for adult learners, but you could really take this same type of choice board and recreate it for students. So of this choice board, we've actually only opened up 3 live options for you today, just because of time and our purposes and how the length of our session and everything. So on the first choice in column 1, you'll see a design option. And with the design option, it's actually a sketch note. And that's a way for you to use, paper pencil, some colored pencils, however you prefer. You can grab scrap paper, a sticky note, grab your paper calendar on your desk and just really sketch out something that will illustrate your thinking, your biggest takeaway from the session. And there is an example on the screen. If you actually click on the word sketch note, and it's just a quick example of a sketch note if that's not something you've done before. And you can do this digitally too. There are lots of doodling apps out there that you can use. I just think paper is sometimes a fun way to connect and really get your thinking out. All right, so the second option is share. And what we would love for you to do is just unmute your mic and answer either part of the 3-2-1 protocol that's linked, or just, answer each of them. So one or all, and you can see the directions on the screen there. You can share one goal, 2 ways that creative communication is significant or important, and 3 facts that you learned about fostering creative communication. So that's an opportunity for you just to talk, right? To talk to each other, talk to the group, and share in a little bit different way. And then the third and final option is to express your thinking by typing out a tweet to summarize your learning goals. You can visit that hyperlink to participate in a slide deck, and you'll just grab a slide. The directions are there. You can enter your name, and then where it says what's happening, that's where you can create your summary of what you learned. And if you are really excited about Twitter and you love it, you can also create a real tweet and tag us in that tweet and put it out there. So you can use the slide deck or create a real tweet. So we have an opportunity for you to sketch and design, to share verbally, or to write out your thoughts by typing them as a tweet. So I'm going to mute and set a timer. I think 5 minutes should be enough, but if you finish before then, just let us know in the chat that you're done. That way we can kind of gauge and shorten that length of time if we need to. And again, if you're opting for the share protocol, the 3-2-1, please just raise your hand using the raise hand icon in Google Meet, and we'll call on you so that you can share your ideas and thoughts. All right, Alexis, go ahead and unmute, and we would love for you to share.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. First off, I would love if I want to do a real tweet. So if you guys have like a hashtag or at that if you could put that in the chat, I would love to tag you guys. But I just want to say thank you for the resources folders. Like that is a really easy way for me to take something away from this and quickly share it with my teachers. Kurt had actually done one about the hyperdocs before, and so that's one that my staff had seen. But being at an AIG magnet school, I really, really liked the higher level questioning and the question stems and the open-ended questions, and that's probably my favorite part. And so I just appreciate the folders of resources.
Wonderful. That's so exciting. Thank you. And Laura also put in the chat our hashtag for Digital Learning Libraries Department is hashtag WonderWake. Hopefully you can see how useful, letting students choose the way they want to reflect can really be helpful and give you really thoughtful responses. So we thank you, Tatiana, for sharing the next slide. I didn't even realize you had it shared already. All right, so on this slide, again, it contains some really excellent resource folders that were mentioned throughout the presentation today. We hope that you'll find those really useful and really just support you as you build these creative communicators in your classroom. Please let your DLCs know if you would like support with implementing any of the resources that are in those folders. We are all happy to help you. There's also some DLC hosted podcasts and some lunch and learn recorded sessions that are linked there as well. There are so many lunch and learns and podcasts. We've got a little list of those, but that link will take you directly to the DLC website where those are housed, so you can browse and look. There's some really great resources on choice boards and student choice, even an assessment. So those will be really helpful as you continue to learn and explore about how to build creative communicators in your classroom. All right, and again, I am going to copy and paste the feedback form link. So please take a few minutes before you head out to just complete that feedback form, because we really want to make sure we're meeting your needs and provide you with any support that you need. So make sure you fill that out, and we will hang back for a little bit so that if you have some extra questions or just want to chat about some of the things you learned today, then we will be here to do that. And I will stop the recording while y'all are filling out that feedback form.